Welcome back to Legacy Wealth 1322. This is where I teach regenerative ranchers and operators how to become way more profitable, but only when they do it in total alignment with God's will. On this episode, we're gonna go beyond the last several episodes that we put together, which have been pretty much on the faith-based side of things. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the practical, in your pocket, money benefits to becoming your own banker using the IBC banking alternative. And it's going to be comprised of several components to this thing. And the first one is the element of compounding interest. Now, it's my understanding that Einstein is supposed to be credited with the comment that compounding interest is the eighth great, how does he say it? The eighth wonder of the world. He says it's the eighth wonder of the world. Now listen, I don't know if any of that's true. It doesn't make any difference because we're not even talking about compound interest. What we're talking about on this channel is uninterrupted compounding interest. And so here's the deal. When you look at the chart, hopefully that's going to be on this video, you're going to see that it takes, well, let me redo this. Let me ask you the question. If you were given the opportunity to take $1 million in cash or a penny doubled every day for 30 days, which would you choose? Well, most people that haven't seen this before are going to say, well, I'll take $1 million any day. But here's the deal. When you understand the magic of compound interest being uninterrupted, it takes until day 28 for the compound interest to hit over $1 million, okay? Now that's serious, that's significant. But listen, 2 days later, that $1 million has grown to in excess of $5 million because of uninterrupted compounding interest. And what I want you to understand is that we're not talking about uninterrupted compounding interest for 30 days. We're not talking 30 weeks. We're not talking 30 months. We're talking about uninterrupted compounding interest literally for the longest period of time humanly possible. That's the rest of your entire lifetime. And when you do this right, according to what Proverbs 1322 is getting across, where regenerative operators always want their operation to be able to pass on to the next generation, well, that's in total alignment with Proverbs 1322, where God tells us his plan is for you to be able to be a blessing to your children's children, okay? So it's totally in alignment with God's will that you use this banking alternative. And I'm going to show you that you can pass that money on multi-generationally so that it goes beyond not only your lifetime, but the lifetimes of multiple generations. That's serious, okay? So I understand that it's as exciting as watching paint peel for the first, early parts of it. But here's the thing you need to understand. You want to let that money go uninterrupted, compounding over long periods of time and not interrupted, because in a traditional sense, it gets interrupted every time you use the money, okay? And now another aspect of this is that with a traditional lender, to get access to money, you got to go through a long qualification process where you can hopefully prove to them, to their satisfaction, that you've got enough collateral, to pay that money back. And even if you get into trouble because of things that are out of your control, it's a bad year drought-wise, or the markets are down, or it's too wet, your crop didn't come in like you intended. Well, that's your problem, not the banker's, because he still wants his money and he's going to get it because he's got your collateral, which might include your entire operation to get access to their money and be able to use it to run your operation. Well, that's never going to be the case with your IBC alternative because you don't put up your collateral as your operation. It's not going to be necessary to get access to the money. Your insurance policy, cash value, is the collateral for the loan with the IBC alternative, okay? And now here's the other part of it. You will never pay a fee, not a dime in fees to get access to that money. So we're starting to stack up some advantages by comparison, because number one, you'll never go through a qualification process and never have to deal with, the fact that if bad things happen to you out of your control, you're still responsible for getting that money paid back. That's not the way it works with the infinite banking alternative here, okay? Now, it's starting to put you in control, because when you think about the traditional way of doing things, it's a very antiquated system, because it makes as much sense to use these limitations and qualification processes to get access to somebody else's money as it does to use an H Farmall or a 2010 John Deere tractor, because those are antiquated pieces of equipment. Traditional banking and financing is an antiquated financing system, and there is an alternative. And I'm explaining it to you. I'm teaching it to you in this whole, Legacy Wealth YouTube channel. All right. Now keep in mind that when you talk about this in the Proverbs 13:22 sense, it's compounding interest for multiple generations of lifetimes for that compound interest to grow. So just imagine, what can happen if we're not talking about, a few $1,000s or this type of situation, $100,000 or whatever, because think about it in this sense. How much interest did you pay this year or last year or in the last several years to be able to use somebody else's money? How much in interest? It's a big number when you add it up, for one thing. And when you start thinking about it in terms of how much more interest you're going to be paying in the future to keep getting access to somebody else's money, it becomes a monstrous amount of money. All right. And just keep that in mind, because we're not talking about just letting this money compound at 4% interest, because here's the thing. I want to explain this. I got a little bit wound up. But see, I personally know of an operator, who came into a windfall situation, who was able to pay off $2 million of loans that got him debt free. Now that's exciting, and it was a lot of debt relief and stress off of his operation and his situation personally, to be able to get that $2 million and pay off the loans that literally saved his operation from bankruptcy. But here's the deal. See, if he'd have been doing that, what he didn't realize, because he wasn't using an IBC alternative, what he didn't benefit from is that if that $2 million had sat in an account, his IBC account, and only generated 4% interest over the next 30 years of his lifetime. Now he's in his early 50s, so 30 years is a very viable, realistic life expectancy for him. And if that money had sat in there, that $2 million had sat in that account, that IBC account, and only generated 4% interest, it would have been worth over $6 million. Now help me understand on what planet it wouldn't make a meaningful, substantial increase in your profitability to be able to not lose $6 million just because you had used an alternative banking system that replaces the antiquated system you're using currently when you're not doing IBC. Okay. Now, the other part of this that I want to talk about is that, again, stressing, you will never ever go through a qualification process. The insurance company with the banking alternative does not care what you're going to do with the money. They don't care what your intentions are for repaying the money. And they don't even care that you pay it back, period. They're not going to dictate to you, okay, here's what your monthly payment's going to amount to. Because if in your situation you say, listen, it would be better for me if I just have a one-time a year payment, because I got a big load of cattle that's going to get paid or sold, and I'll have money then, or that's when my crops are sold off in the fall and I've got the one-time payment situation. That's fine, no problem. That is your determination, not the bank. Okay. The other thing that they're willing to do for you and allow you to do is that if you want to even go to, let's say, an interest-only payment for a period of time for cash flow purposes, that's your prerogative, because in this case, as the infinite banking alternative, you are both the banker and the borrower. You're in control here. You're not in control in a traditional sense, and it's just ridiculous that you keep putting up with this stuff. It's antiquated. It's out of date. Like I said, it makes as much sense to be doing this antiquated system as it does to be using an H Farmall or a 2010 John Deere tractor. That's antiquated equipment. Now, here's another thing that few people understand this, because I'm gonna tell you something up front. It's going to sound crazy as all get out, and you're going to say you don't have any idea what you're talking about here. I'm going to tell you that every single purchase, people need to understand, every single purchase needs to be understood that it is finance. You finance every single purchase, regardless of what you bought. You say, wait a minute, you are absolutely nuts. You don't have any idea what you're talking about, because I am smart enough, I'm successful enough, I'm profitable enough. I haven't paid a dime of interest to borrow money from anybody for anything ever. And I don't ever intend to do that, because I'm successful enough. I pay cash for everything. Well, congratulations, because in worldly terms, that makes a lot of sense. That means you are relatively successful. But here's the deal. Nobody's ever explained to you, evidently, that because you need to understand the truth, and that is that traditionally you pay interest to use somebody else's money. But untraditionally, you lose interest when you pay cash, because that money is no longer in an account that was generating interest. It is no longer going to generate interest, and you're going to lose that money forever. And that's where I'm talking about, that this friend that I'm personally acquainted with lost the equivalent of $6 million because he wasn't using an infinite banking account to cover that loan repayment situation. Okay. And just think about that, because we're not talking about, in this case, $6 million that was lost in the steamroll of things. We're talking about, think about how much interest you are paying, have paid, and will pay in the future to run your operation with traditional loans and lending processes. It's a massive number. And when you compound that at interest, that's not the best you can do with the money, because if you can't do any better than just letting the money sit in a bank account, why in the world are you running an operation that could be generating 12, 15, 20, 30% returns on your money, as a good steward operator of your operation? Okay, it's mind-boggling how much money you're losing because you're not using a modern day banking alternative, because you're stuck in the old paradigm. Well, that won't even work around here. If this is so good, why haven't I heard about it? Well, that kind of thinking is going to cost you millions of dollars, likely, if you keep that up. So that's just another aspect of things. And so here's another thing that I want you to understand is that let me just look my notes up here. Okay, so the thing that I want to cover here is that when you really let this sink in, you want your family to be able to be prosperous and profitable. They want you to be profitable and prosperous. Your family deserves you to be profitable, but they're only going to have that happening if you get it to them. So I want you to be thinking about this. How much is it going to cost you and your family if you don't get that to them, because you don't act on this banking alternative, situation? Okay. Now, I'm going to get close to wrapping this up on the basis that if you've made it this far, then click on the link in here where you can get access, a free copy of my ebook, Regenerative Operator, Can You Be Trusted with Biblical Wealth? It's a free deal. There's no, I'll pay for the book, you pay for the shipping, and that kind of nonsense. That's not free. But this is absolutely free, because all you got to do is click on the link and we'll send you that copy. Now, if you happen to be the kind that says, well, listen, that sounds like a nice deal, but I'm not a reader, I'm not big on that kind of stuff. And I say, okay, I got you, because I'm literally in the process of creating an audio version of this thing as we speak. So if that's more your thing, you're not a reader type, no problem. We're going to get you covered. All right. So just click on the link and request that ebook for free and read that thing, because I go into a lot more detail than we're going to be covering on these video episodes. And in the meantime, then, stick with me and come back next week, because we're going to be talking about another aspect of this biblical wealth building process that was identified in an Ag Steward Summit that was hosted by Jared Sorensen several months ago. For the second of the high priorities that were identified in a survey was legacy planning. We're going to be talking about that, and I'm going to show you, that if you're not using this banking alternative, you are missing out on big time money. So with that, And I'll wrap this one up and catch you next week. You all be blessed.